Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. This is Dan Sfera. This podcast episode, I'm actually going to do one on, I'm going to do a lot more podcasts in the next week or so on your questions that you send. So send them to Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com, or you can text them to me 949-415-6256, or send them to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. All the links are underneath in the show notes here and underneath the YouTube video. But this one is a question I got that is from a CRA, and I've been getting a lot of these kind of questions lately, probably since even before the pandemic, but just people, primarily CRAs, but it could be this video will apply to anybody in the industry. Um, how they can do other things to monetize, like to add additional revenue streams. And for those of you who don't know, I have a really cool thing on Patreon. I don't talk about it enough. Patreon.com/DanSfera. It costs $5 a month, but included in that, every month there is a monthly mastermind where it's like a meetup between me and you and all the other patrons in the community. And we talk about your goals, what you're doing to accomplish them, things like that. So I highly recommend you check it out. I also include one video per week that I don't put here on YouTube, that's just for Patreon, on business, on social media, on digital marketing, on entrepreneurship, investing, all kinds of stuff that's not really related to research. But at the end of the day, because you're in research, it is related to research because it's related to research through you. So today's video podcast is not only inspired by the question I got from a viewer, but it's inspired by a Patreon video that I did today. So you'll see me with the same outfit on, with Joey Finro, who's my realtor buddy, and we're doing a real estate course. And so I'll explain why he's doing it, and then this video and podcast will also explain how all of the businesses that the Clinical Trials Guru and now DSCS put out. Like, people always ask, well, you have so many companies, so what are you doing? Well, they didn't just happen overnight. They happen because I'm paying attention to what the market's asking for. And this is what this podcast is going to be about. And it could apply to literally anyone in the industry. You can be an employee, you can be a business owner, you can be none of the above and just want to be one of those two. It applies to everybody. So again, go to patreon.com/dansfera. Links are underneath here. $5 a month. You won't be disappointed. Now, okay, now for whatever it is that you do, let's go back to this person's question. Whether you are a CRA or whether you are a coordinator, but let's go with this person's question that they are a CRA and they want to know how they can, in addition to their daily job, how they can earn more revenue doing other things. And again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to go through your employment agreement. There are employers out there that have clauses in your employment agreement that you will not work for anyone else. I don't know if that includes yourself, and every state is different. Every state has different rules and laws against employment contracts, and sometimes these things are not enforceable, but they're in contracts. It gets complicated. But let's assume that you don't have to worry about an employment agreement, or you don't even care. All right, because there's a lot of people that are in those two boats. All right, so let's say you're a CRA, because this is this person's question. You're monitoring every day. Maybe you have 3 site visits per week. You're traveling to sites, you're driving to sites, you're flying to sites, you're doing monitoring visits, and you're also doing your reports and sending it to your lead CRA. All the stuff we talk about in the CRA Academy, all the stuff that we actually do in our CRO, DSCS CRO, you're doing those things. Now, how does that person come up with another idea for a new revenue stream in addition to what they're already doing? Now, the average millionaire, why is this important? Because the average millionaire And again, this is not a business podcast or business YouTube channel. You go to my Patreon for that. But the average millionaire has seven, I believe last time I checked, seven streams of income, different income. They could all be in the same industry, all right? Preferably there you have some other industries in there as well, but they could all come from the same industry. Like right now, mine, outside of my stocks and other investments like real estate and some of the real estate work I do, some of the realtor work I do, all my streams of revenue come from research, but they don't come from the same place in research. So it's still seven or eight different streams. The average millionaire has that. Okay, so that's really your goal. If you only have one, meaning you only have a paycheck, or you only have a site that does just studies, you need to get to work on figuring this out. And it's not that hard. So let's go back to the example of the CRA. She's monitoring, going to sites 3 times a week, traveling, dealing with EDCs, dealing with IWRS, educating sites, training sites, educating sponsors sometimes. So this is what this person's doing, okay? And maybe even networking with Socra or going to like a few conferences a year, right? This is your typical CRA. This is what they do. Now, just look at all the things that I just mentioned, okay? Training staff at the site level, checking um, queries and things like that. Okay, so what is that? That's quality control, and that is education and training. That's two things I mentioned that every CRA does. That's their job. Those two things are two separate business streams that you could theoretically make. You can have a training company just like we do our CRA Academy. I know a lot of CRAs out there that have different kinds of academies. You can have a training academy. You can have a boutique consulting agency that works with sites on helping them look at their QA and helping them get better prepared for sponsor audits and FDA audits. I know many series that do that. You can have a consulting firm, kind of like we do, DSCS, where you help sites get more studies. Okay, you can have one where you help sites negotiate budgets, although CRAs don't really negotiate budgets, so I won't put that in there, but you should learn. This is why you always should be learning and why you should become a generalist in this space. So look at just those few things that I mentioned, and I'm not even thinking outside the box or getting creative at all. Okay, at the site level, you can create two separate businesses for sites. Okay, so you have sites, and you can do this either locally or nationally. Okay, or if you can do it virtually, you can do it internationally. Training sites. Sites need lots of training. What trainings do they need? Well, you as a CRA should be best equipped to answer that question because you're going to sites all the time. You're writing these monitoring reports. The problem with most CRAs is that we have, and I'm a CRA too, we have our blinders on when we're at the site, so we're not thinking about other things. We're thinking about completing a report, and that's it. Now, I think the reason why I saw these other things, or I started noticing these other things in my day job, is because of this YouTube channel and people like you who watch and ask questions. So, your questions would actually reinforce the issues that I see when I'm working on the site or when I'm monitoring on the site. I see the pain points because your questions are often the same pain points or issues that I'm actually seeing out in the field. So it's just reinforcing what I already see. Maybe it's just subconscious. So then it comes out, hey, maybe there's a business here. Enter the CRA Academy. Enter the fact that we do site consulting services where we help sites get studies, negotiate budgets, create source docs, do the QA for them. So look at those two things that every CRA can do right there. Teach other people how to be CRAs. Okay, and by the way, you don't have to do all these. These are just ideas. And there's millions of ideas. That's the thing about business is that there's no limit. And so far I'm only talking about CRAs marketing different services to sites. We can do a whole lot of other stuff here as well. So those two things, helping sites and training other people to be CRAs. Now, as a CRA, I know in my 4 years or 5 years of being a full-time, or not a full-time, but a actual CRA, like not just for my own CRO, but for other CROs now and sponsors as well, and consultant and advisor and all that stuff. I have actually been asked by sponsors in numerous cases to do more than just monitor the site. I've been asked to train them, the sponsor, on what they should be doing in certain situations. So that's a whole nother revenue stream, which, by the way, is a huge one, which is sort of what evolved DSC as CRO. Because the CRO for us came last. Like, first thing I did was did my sites, then I did this YouTube channel, which didn't monetize anything really, but it attracted me to, like I said, people asking questions, feedback, and then it reinforced what I saw in the field as well. So, um, then we started the CRA Academy, then the site services, then the CRO, then the CRC Academy. So all these things created because there were pain points that we've identified and created revenue streams. And now I think even quicker, like somehow, because I've been doing this so long, I've learned how to spot opportunities faster now. And here's a key trick for anyone who's struggling to find opportunities is problems. Problems are actually opportunities in disguise. So if you're a CRA, you go to sites, what's the main problems that you see? That's a business. I guarantee you, if that site's dealing with it, 100 other sites are dealing with it. Okay, that's a business stream. Or what have you helped sponsors with? What have either your lead CRA or your sponsors that you're contracting with? What have they asked you to do that you saw? Okay, there's a disconnect between what the sponsor thinks about how the study should be run versus what the site needs to be doing, and then how the CRA plays into that. That's another business line right there. That's another stream of revenue, and that's how our DSCS CRO evolved, right? Because of all the trainings I've been doing with sponsors. And by the way, sponsors want all kinds of stuff now. I mean, they want to know how can they enroll more patients in studies. They want to know how they can enroll more minorities into studies. They want to know how they can get more patients from rural areas into studies. Then there's this whole other world of virtual trials. So that's like 10 revenue streams right there from the site side, from the sponsor side. Now, what about the CRO side? What do CROs constantly compete with other CROs for? Good CRAs, right? So, what if you can create a business somehow where you recruit really good CRAs to different CROs. So like a marketing agency or a recruiter agency, a job recruiter agency. So that's another revenue stream you can do as a CRA. Now, what about all the tools? Maybe you're tech inclined. What about all the tools that you see? eSource, EDC, IWRS, EKG portals, all these things. Like you can try to find a way to make this process more streamlined. And I know many CRAs who have created CROs, of course, but tech companies too. Like I know many that created their own vendors in this industry and are still doing their monitoring, by the way. But they also have like a EDC or Raymond, who wasn't a CRA, but the guy who owns, and he's been on the podcast numerous times, the guy who owns clinicalresearch.io, CREO. Raymond was a site director, and we're going to get to the sites next. What do you do if you're at the site level? I think there's even more opportunities at the site level to generate different streams of revenue. But Raymond was a site owner, site director. He still is, by the way, but he saw a pain point with the fact that paper source was inefficient. So he created one of the best e-source platforms there is right now in clinical research. We use them, CREO. So always look for ancillary businesses. And you know what the interesting thing about these things is that you don't need to do any extra work really to identify them. You just need to be more attuned to what you're doing. Like not just looking at your day-to-day job. If that's important, you got to do that because you're directly monetizing that activity. but also opening up your eyes and seeing problems and seeing trends and figuring out, okay, this is obviously a problem that must be going on at different sites. I'm only seeing it at these sites, but there's 100,000 sites in the country, or I don't know how many sites there are in the country. So, what's the issues there? You're going to start spotting trends. At academic medical centers, when I go monitor, these are the issues. At private sites with 3 clinicians or less, these are the problems. At larger private sites with 5 to 10 clinicians, these are the problems. At hospitals, you're going to start picking these things up if you're paying attention. If you're just focused on getting your report done, that's it. I mean, you'll get your report done. Congrats, you did your job. But if you want to look for additional revenue streams, you got to start looking at the ancillary business opportunities. And you don't have to take away from your current job to identify these things, because in the process of working on your current job, you're going to find these things. So, again, this is why it's so important, I think, to be a generalist. Everybody starts as a specialist, but really, to be a generalist means you can solve multiple problems for different stakeholders at the site level, at the sponsor level, at the CRO level, at the vendor level. Lots of opportunities there. Okay, so for a CRA, I just gave you a bunch of new ways to monetize. Obviously, if you're a W-2 and you want to do all this, you're ambitious, and your employment agreement is very restrictive in regards to this, then put in your 2 to 5 years that you need, and then become a contract CRA where you're just doing it. You're a freelancer. You'll get paid more. It's a little riskier, but you'll get paid more. But you'll be free to do these things. Okay, these other building these other revenue streams. Now, it's riskier, of course, to quit your job. So you can start building these revenue streams now while you're at your current job. And then when the time is right, maybe you can make the move. Um, you'll know when the time is right, because you just won't be able to keep up anymore with the demands, and then you'll have to go contract route. So as a CRA, that's the best ways, I think, to monetize in addition to what you're doing without really spending much more time identifying. You're going to spend more time working on the solutions, but to identify the problems and opportunities, you should be doing that during your day-to-day job anyways, because any problem you come across, chances are that's a problem that at least 10 other sites that you can connect with easily would probably pay you for. Okay, so there's that. There's training, there's helping sites get started with studies, there's helping sites manage their studies, um, there's training sponsors, there's training other CRAs, there's looking for other CRAs and sending them to different sponsors and CROs that want to recruit them. And then there's patient recruitment. And patient recruitment really like comes at the site level. Okay. And so the next part of this podcast is going to be for site owners or people that work at sites, maybe employees. What can you do to create different revenue streams? So if you're a coordinator and you're an employee, much the same as your CRA colleagues that I just mentioned, you should be looking for problems within your workflow, your day-to-day workflow. Because, and by the way, there's more problem. The problems are much more visible at the site level, I think, because there's just much more can go wrong at the site level. So you're going to get, and plus at the site level, you have the benefit of interacting with the patients, the doctors, and the vendors, and then the sponsors and CROs and CRAs. See, at the CRA level, all you're doing is working with the sites, sponsors, and the vendors. But here at the site level, you get the patients, you've got the physicians, you've got the community, you get more of the vendors, and it's a different perspective as well. CRAs deal with IRBs just like coordinators do, but different perspective. Same with the IWRS and EDC and the source. CRAs deal with all, and CRAs and CRCs deal with both of those things, but from different angles. So if you're at the site level, that's something you can be doing, is looking at the problems and figuring out, okay, what's the opportunity here? And if you are comfortable with who you work for, you can go to your boss, who's probably the owner of the site, and bring it up to them and say, "Hey, I've discovered a new revenue stream here. I mean, we're turning down all these phase one contracts, but we can contract with this hospital here, and I've negotiated, or I can negotiate the lease for the bed space, and we can start doing phase one studies. And then after that, we can start doing CRO type of stuff. Or maybe, so that's vertical integration. Or maybe you're gonna talk to your boss and say, look, I know we're doing really well in our market here, but we should go 20 miles that way to that other town because this is the opportunity there, and we need to start building a site network. Or maybe it's something along the lines of virtual trials. Hey, we're a site. We want to be ahead of the game. We want to be ahead of the curve. So we want to start doing virtual trials ourselves, and you become more of a vendor. Remember, by 2024, the majority of clinical trial budgets and spending is going to go to vendors, not sites, not CROs. They're going to go to vendors like tech vendors, virtual trial vendors. So if you're at a site, these are the pain points. Another big pain point is patient recruitment, getting patients. Another big pain point is getting physicians to join your network. Another big pain point is getting more studies. Another big pain point is SOPs, quality. How if you end up having four sites, how do you ensure the quality is the same at each one? How do you ensure the SOPs are being followed? Building systems. All these things I just mentioned are additional revenue streams for you if you work at a site. And if you own the site, obviously vertically integrating, horizontally integrating, meaning you're becoming like your so vertical integration is you're becoming a different type of your competitor, or sorry, horizontal integration is you're becoming more of your business is just replicating. That's horizontal integration. You're either acquiring, so if you're a site, you're either acquiring another site or you're creating your own other site. That's horizontal integration. Vertical integration is if you're a site that does phase two, but now you want to do phase one, okay? Or you're a site that does phase one through four, but now you want to also be a CRO or an SMO or a site network mixed with a CRO. That's vertical integration, and then you get to the sponsor level. Horizontal integration is more of the same, but also horizontal integration is the vendors in the space. So you're a site, but you also want to build like an e-source, like Raymond did. That would be a horizontal integration. Okay, it's that e-source is a service provider to the site, not a customer of the site or not a different type of site. So those are the things you need to look at if you're a site owner, because virtual trials is coming, technology is coming. Obviously, it's not. I don't think it's going to replace sites, but there are so many pain points at the site level. It's unbelievable, and those are all opportunities for different revenue streams. So we talk about a lot of this stuff on my Patreon. Definitely go check it out. I think it's worth the $5 a month just for the monthly mastermind and the weekly videos on how to use social media. I mean, what are you watching this on? What are you listening to this on? Okay, this is how people find you now in 2020. So we talk about that in the Patreon as well. But basically, social media needs to be part of your strategy, no matter who you are that just listen to this, because that's where, just like me, just like me when I started my YouTube channel, yeah, I knew what the pain points were, but I wasn't thinking too much because I had my blinders on and I was too focused on solving that particular problem. I didn't have the time to see, okay, that's an opportunity. I probably did subconsciously, but then I started making videos about my problems, and then you guys started emailing me and texting me and saying, hey, you know, I have this issue too. And that's when it reinforced that, okay, I'm not the only one that's having this problem. Business opportunity, revenue stream. So social media is super important. I don't care what it is. Instagram, YouTube, podcast, TikTok, LinkedIn. I recommend you have all of them. Okay, and if you want to learn how to do this better, my Patreon channel. But just know that should be integrated into this whole process. All right, so hopefully this video helps a little bit. Tomorrow I'm going to get to another really good question that I had from another listener this time, and we're going to get that one up there as well. So good luck, everybody. Take care. See the problems as opportunities. Bye bye.